talk about barbecue all day long.
Exactly.
But we can do that at some other time. Today we're going to talk about Menlo Security and all the good stuff you're showing off here at Black Hat. How's the week so far?
It's been amazing. We're seeing some amazing technology. You know, the big guys are doing their big thing, and the younger startups are doing some amazing new tricks. And I'm seeing some super impressive technologies. I think it's difficult for the audience to distinguish between what's real and what's not, and how the messages that sound the same are actually different.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of. There are only so many words in the dictionary, right?
Exactly.
We have to use them to kind of get our message across. That's the fun part. So hopefully we'll kind of hone in on some of the things that you guys do to help organizations achieve their objectives. A bit about your role at Menlo Security.
So I'm VP Product. I'm Head of Product for AI Security and Data Security in Menlo. So a bunch of new interesting initiatives, AI powered and for AI.
And so you launched Mars a while back, and then you have some updates that have come through. So here's an overview of, well, give me the elevator pitch for Menlo Security so folks have that, and then a look at the latest revs of Mars for us as well.
So Menlo Security is focused on securing human browser interaction, which means we make the internet safe for humans. The extension of that is now, as agents are interacting with web content, with browser content, we want to make sure that agents are not going rogue and keeping the data safe from agentic workflows.
Right. So how does, obviously plugins to the browser, AI, what are the extensions, I guess it would be, obviously access to data on the machine and the back end. So your role of looking at AI and data and the world of browsers, how does that kind of all play together?
So that's interesting, because I think I would break it down into two very different use cases, which is what we're hearing from our customers. The first one is, how are humans using AI? In my daily job, I use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, and I do that in many cases on the browser. IT needs visibility into that. IT needs to know that I'm doing that and to approve or not approve, and what data am I sharing? Is that sensitive data or private data? And am I allowed to share that data? So that's kind of one aspect, the discovery of shadow usage of AI. A whole different universe is on the more mature spectrum, kind of end of the spectrum, is I'm building agents now. I'm building autonomous agents to automate business process. How do I allow these autonomous agents to be productive, but do it in a safe way that is not goal hijacked?
And so give us some scenarios of what organizations are trying to accomplish. Obviously, there's a lot of adoption of AI, purposeful, meaningful, shadow instances, right? But what are companies trying to achieve?
So I think what's interesting is that we've had tens of discussions with Menlo customers, and they're all saying the same thing, which is AI is incredible. It's making us way more productive. We do not have yet the guardrails in place to keep our data safe. So you've put in, let's say you've put in place Claude Cowork to allow every one of your marketing people and engineers to have access to your email and OneDrive and Google Drives and all of your data sources. How do we keep the data safe? What if the agent is prompt injected? How do you secure that data? So the idea is really, how do we keep everyone productive, keeping the data safe at the same time?
And how do they even have an option to kind of do that work without Menlo Security in place? Are they trying to figure that out?
Right. So I think the interesting thing when you walk around Black Hat is that everyone is kind of saying the same thing,
right,
but everyone means something slightly different. Right? So one thing I would kind of think about if you're in a governance role, if you're, when we talk to customers, is ask yourself, question number one, how do I protect the agent from thinking the wrong thing? By protecting its LLM, by protecting its workflows, by protecting its runtime. Problem number two, for defense in depth, how do I actually secure what the agent is actually doing? How do I secure the data where it is used by the agent, where it is consumed by the agent? And that's where we come in with Mars, where initially we've launched a platform that looks at, hey, an agent is browsing, how can I secure what the agent is doing on the internet? A secondary question is, okay, let's take that a step further. If we've deployed Cloud Code, which uses internet resources, we've deployed Cloud Cowork, we've deployed Copilot. How do we make sure that when that agent reaches out with the internet, it doesn't put my sensitive data at risk?
So how and where does Menlo fit into I'll say the infrastructure? Start there. So where do you plug in? Are you at the network level, the browser level, endpoint level, data level? I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there are many different entry points to intervene and inspect agentic traffic. The first one is obviously the browser. So we proxy all agentic traffic through Menlo, and we can inspect it. And not only inspect, we can actually prevent by masking data, by preventing indirect prompt injection attacks, or we prevent web-based and file-based threats. And the intention is basically to prevent the risk before it actually materializes into something that needs to be cleaned up. So we could inspect proxy traffic through Menlo. We can sit.
You mentioned the browser. The apps are also browser-ish, right?
So apps have many different ways of interacting with the world, right, and with agents. Agents can reach out over APIs and MCP servers and browsers and web fetch tools. Mars intervenes in many of these areas, both on browser and web traffic, and soon enough on MCP traffic as well. We'll be evolving this over the next few weeks and months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what types of things, what are you looking for, and how does that surface to somebody who needs to monitor and make a decision on what to do?
Okay, so from a governance perspective, what I'm hearing from customers is that these two levels of governance are required. The first one is, how do I prevent an agent from interpreting incorrectly an intent and taking the wrong action? That is more an LLM brains type security. The second layer is, I want to protect my data where it lives, in my data stores, in my applications. That perimeter security for what the agent actually touches is that second layer.
Okay.
And this is where we and other vendors come in and apply controls.
Okay. So you defining policies that then put the controls around the agent to actually handle the decision on its own, or
so the ideal situation is if I as a company have an agent registry and I have 10,000 agents and agent swarms running in my environment. I will want to be able to apply a single set of controls across the board for all of the agents' activity across browser and network and endpoint and application activity. And that is what Mars is. It's a centralized, unified, single pane of glass control where you can apply policy for anything the agent is doing.
So what are some of the results from customers and even prospects that are doing proof of concepts and things like that? What is some feedback you're getting, some results you're getting?
So the first interesting point is we're seeing a difference between customers who are deploying agents only for internal analysis. So if an agent is running analysis on your Salesforce instance or on your databases, that is one category of risk. A whole different category of risk where we are seeing traction is the agent has access to my sensitive data, but it also has access to the internet. And this is in many cases overlooked by compliance teams because, most agents have access to the internet. What that really means is that through internet interaction, you can be prompt injected, which means your goal can be hijacked, which means you could be told to exfiltrate all of your sensitive data. So where we're seeing traction is really in those use cases where if you're a bank and you're running an agent for financial analysis, which by the way has access to your customers' private data, it's running analysis on the internet, that's where we're seeing success in securing that data.
And from a security program perspective, I presume you fit into the big picture of security management, security operations. How does that world look like?
So that is one of the more interesting points I'm finding lately. There are few companies who have actually defined what AI governance truly means and have a team that is fully enabled and where responsibility is truly delegated to this team to own AI governance. What really is happening in most companies is that it is either delegated to the endpoint team or the network team or the browser team, and then every one of them is trying to find their angle into how they can secure AI usage. And that is a challenge. That truly is a challenge.
Yeah, different teams. There's probably gaps and certainly overlaps as well, which is wasteful in some cases. I'm trying to think from a let's keep going with the team perspective. So there are those different teams, and what is relevant for each of them as they start to look at what you provide.
So I think it really depends on each team what data they actually have access to. So for example, if I'm an endpoint security team, I know that I can track traffic coming out of agents running on endpoints. Those agents, on one hand, can provide you can inspect some or part of the traffic coming out, but if that agent is then running a command that drives data from one cloud to another, potentially an endpoint security team would not have visibility into that, which is when they need to reach out to a network team or a cloud team or an applications team. If I'm a cloud infrastructure team, I have access to data coming from agents running in cloud, but I don't have access to inspection points on the endpoint. So that's where a whole lot of collaboration is needed. And that is where the way we're building Mars is as a platform that can inspect not what the agent is intending to do, but what it is actually doing in the real world. And that's where we have so many inspection points where we can truly put controls, not only inspection and visibility, but actual controls on what the agent is doing.
Of course, sadly, organizations, especially in certain industries, are regulated by different laws. They have to be audited to prove that they meet a certain standard, achieve a certain level. And I guess I'm wondering, in terms of what you provide from Mars for an audit, what does that look like for those fields?
So first, it's a really interesting point, because if you look, for example, at Europe came out with this AI Act, which is intended to protect our privacy from usage in AI. The US is not there yet, and that's very concerning. I actually just spoke with a group that is a non-profit that is acting to create more AI regulations in the country, in the US, in order to protect my personal healthcare data, which is great. What Mars does to help that is it actually provides several different layers of visibility. The first one is logging and dashboarding on what the agent is actually doing. At the same time, wherever they're moving. What's interesting and unique is that because Menlo, by definition, runs everything through its cloud browser, its browser which runs in the Menlo cloud, we can not only inspect what the agent is doing, we can show visually what the agent was attempting to do in the real world. And that is extremely unique, because we're no longer looking at logs that can be deciphered in different ways. We're looking at the actual agent activity on the web. And that can be inspected and audited and logged for compliance reasons.
I think, sadly, as you point out, the U.S. not quite there yet, but I'm sure they will be, probably led by the states first.
As always.
For the federal government. But even if there isn't a regulation, probably a good thing to understand anyway from a business perspective. So it's good that you provide that capability.
I think, the aha moment that I always find when we talk to customers is they're enjoying the productivity of these agents. They're using AI assistants and coding assistants and autonomous agents. And the first honeymoon period is incredible because they're having so much fun and it feels like a game. And the agents are extremely productive. But the aha moment is when you understand that agent who doesn't have human discipline and human ethics can be tricked easily. And once that agent is tricked, if it has access to the internet, there's enormous risk there.
Exposure.
Yeah, exposure.
Sure. Well, Eric, it's a pleasure chatting with you. I'm excited to keep following what you're doing with Menlo and Mars, and hopefully there are more stories we can talk about, different customers and use cases. In the meantime, connect with Eric and the Menlo Security team. Follow them on LinkedIn, I presume. They can find you there.
Absolutely.
And stay tuned for more coming from Black Hat here from ITSV Magazine.
Thanks so much.